Letter from Materia Ture, seeking to debate under Standing Order 386 the implications for current negotiations with Sky City over its bid to build a convention centre in Auckland, given the Auditor General's decision today to inquire into expressions of interest process for the building of the convention centre. There is no ministerial responsibility for the decision of the Auditor General to inquire into the expressions of interest process. For there to be a case of recent occurrence, there must be either a new situation of importance or a new development in an existing situation of sufficient importance to warrant the business of the House being set aside. The setting up of an inquiry really justifies such an urgent debate. The urgent debate procedure is a means of holding the government to account for matters that have actually occurred. The time for such a debate may be when the government announces its response, if any, to the Auditor General's inquiry. The application is therefore declined. I have also received a letter from Andrew Little, seeking to debate under Standing Order 386 the resignation of the Chair of the Board of ACC and resignations of the Chief Executive, Deputy Chair of the Board and a Board Director. This is a case of recent occurrence involving ministerial responsibility, and I accept it does require immediate intention of the House. I therefore call on Mr Little to move that the House take note of the matter of urgent public importance.
I so move, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, ACC is in the deepest crisis it has been in its 38 years of existence. It is an absolute disgrace, and it is entirely the responsibility of that government. Two ministers have driven the proudest, greatest, most important institution in this country into the ground. Nick Smith started it when he declared there was a financial crisis that never existed. He has caused every wage and salary earner, every business in this country to be levied more than $5 billion than was necessary over the last 3 years to pay for his folly. They are so embarrassed about it. They put the levies up in 2009 and they had to quickly take them down again just before the election last year. But nothing compares to the disaster that has unfolded under the current minister. So what do we have? Breach of privacy after breach of privacy. Their problem is they got one of their own wrong. They misjudged her. They misjudged Bronwyn Puller, a person for whom Nick Smith gave a great reference that caused him to lose his head. And they misjudged Michelle Bogue, the mighty Michelle Bogue. And they have caused distress and concern to thousands of New Zealanders injured in the course of going about their daily activities, whether in work or at home or on the roads or on the sports fields. They are the people with complex, difficult, serious injuries who are trying to get support and assistance from ACC. And because of Nick Smith and the directive he has given the board of ACC, John Judge, who he specially recruited into the job, because he gave them a directive, cut back, cut costs, slash, don't worry about the difficult cases, get them off ACC's books as quickly as possible. We now have the disaster that is unfolding, that is ACC. And as it has hit the headlines through innocent people like Bronwyn Puller, this minister has been called on to act. And what has she done? What has she done? Very little. Very little. She's become the subject of a privacy complaint herself, her and her office, because she cannot be trusted with information that goes to her office. And because of that complaint, she won't comment on privacy breaches involving the communication between her and Michelle Bogue. And then when the heat gets really tough, she starts suing her political opponents, because that's the best way she knows to shut them down. This is not a minister for ACC worth speaking of. This is not ministerial conduct that we understand in a Western democracy. This is shocking stuff. If you asked anybody else in the world, is there a country where a Minister of Justice who's in charge of the courts is using those courts to sue her political opponents, you'd think we'd be talking about something in Africa or maybe a Pacific island. But we are talking about New Zealand, because that's how this minister deals with a difficult situation. The challenge for this government and its Prime Minister is this: ACC and every claimant under it deserves better. They deserve better. They deserve a minister who is prepared to give their full time, energy and attention to the job, not suing their political opponents, not trying to diss the innocent claimants who are just trying to get their just entitlements. We need a minister who's prepared to do the job of looking after ACC, of making ACC the sort of institution that New Zealanders can go back to looking to get support and assistance in their time of need. That's what it was set up for, under the Woodhouse principles. The principle of community responsibility. They've turned it into a corporate behemoth. Nick Smith started it, Judith Collins has continued it, and it's time to have a new minister who can start afresh, give new directions to a new board, and start to restore public faith and confidence in ACC. They've started an ideological change to ACC. ACC was conceived in a spirit of bipartisanship. All parties supported it in 1973 and 1974 when it came about. And its board has always reflected a diverse mix. What we've had under this government is a very narrow range of people, all come out of the corporate sector, who don't understand the life of many claimants, those who have brain injuries and complex and serious injuries. We need a new ACC board, but most importantly, we need a new ACC minister who is prepared to give fresh direction and fresh support to a corporation that will start to support and assist New Zealanders when they need it most. What we don't need is a corporation directed by a government that says hike up the levies, fleece the wage and salary earners, fleece all the businesses, extract $5 billion unnecessarily out of their pockets over the last 3 years and cause absolute mayhem, because that's what we have now. It's sad that someone like Ralph Stewart, barely 6 months into the job, who brings all his expertise that he brought into the job, cannot last, cannot stand this minister, cannot stand what is going on. It's sad that other members of the board who were just starting to make their contribution cannot stand what this government is doing. It is a disgraceful government. It has given disgraceful direction to an important institution in this country, and it's time it came to an end. Well, it's coming to an end because it's unravelling very quickly. They are all leaving, like rats leaving the proverbial sinking ship. But it all starts at the top, and the real top is the minister. The minister sets the direction. This government says what happens with ACC. It sets the policy. It approves the levies. It decides what happens. And we need a minister who is now focused on the needs of ACC and the people who depend upon it, the people who come to it when they are injured at work, the people who come to it when they are injured in their cars on the roads and on the sports field, people who shouldn't have to go through the hoops, people who shouldn't have to be treated as something as to be managed off, a difficult list, a long-term list. People are entitled to be treated with dignity. And all around the country, I doubt whether there's one MP who is not getting the emails and the correspondence from the people who have been hurt by ACC under this government, who've been hurt by its tawdry, nasty, filthy little strategy of trying to fleece people and get people and lose them their entitlements. People deserve better, and they are asking for better, and now's the time to get better. So the challenge to the government is this: a new minister, a new direction, a new policy and a new culture that says we are here to support people in their time of difficult need. Yes, let's examine the claims as they come in, but let's support people at the time they need it most. And let's make sure that ACC's money is not being spent on PR companies and polling, because that's all this government knows how to do. When it gets in a scrape, go to the pollsters to find out what's going on. Let's have a corporation, an accident compensation corporation, that spends its money on the people. That's what the Act says it's required to do. Levy people and spend money on their compensation and their medical care and treatment. That's what it's there for. It's not there as a plaything for National Party ministers to play their ideological games and suffer their ideological birth. There's Mr. $5 billion. Mr. $5 billion. That's his contribution to New Zealand's economic development in the last 3 years. Fleeced New Zealand of $5 billion. Over-levied them, and in a peak of embarrassment just before the election, realised he had overshot and had to reduce the levies. He has fleeced New Zealanders, and it's no wonder that ACC is in the state that it is in, Because why would you, if you're on the board of ACC, why would you, if you're a senior staff member of ACC, would you look to this government for a sense of confidence and direction and integrity and reliability? They cannot offer it. They haven't offered it for the last 3.5 years. They cannot offer it now. And this is an opportunity for one of the bright young stars in the backbench of the National Party, maybe even Simon Bridges himself, to step up and say, I take ACC seriously. I take ACC seriously. And I want an ACC to return to the time when it was an institution that every New Zealander looked to rely on and to trust and to go to when they were in their time of need as a result of an injury caused by an accident. This government is failing ACC. Every plan that it's had that it called an improvement, it has failed to prosecute. It wanted the insurance companies to take over. The insurance companies weren't interested. It wanted to expand its accredited employer scheme. They can't do it. They haven't do it. This is a do-nothing minister with a department, with a corporation that is in urgent need of attention. And she has wrapped herself up in legal knots with privacy complaints, with her own litigation against her political opponents, and she has compromised herself, and she is unable to do anything effectively as a minister. And she should do the honourable thing. She should go to John Key this afternoon and say, you know what, Prime Minister, Andrew Little is right. I can't do the job anymore. Oh, you were quite able to quote how right I was before. They should say Andrew Little is right and say, Prime Minister, find somebody else who's up for the job. It won't be Nick Smith, and it won't be Judith Collins. It won't be Stephen Joyce, because he's got another big ministry to run. But it might be one of the talented ones at the back there. It might be one of the talented ones at the back there who actually believe in ACC, who believe that when New Zealanders are injured at work, on the roads, on the sports fields, that they are entitled to get the no-fault support that ACC guaranteed them year after year. That's what we are looking for in a minister. Not the last two, or not the one and this one and the last one, but a minister who cares about ACC, cares about the people who depend upon it, and wants to make a culture difference in it that so far they haven't been able to do. And while they're at it, while they're at making the culture difference, they can start looking to some of the worst victims of the changes in ACC, those who are victims of sexual abuse, who have had their support, their counselling support, taken off them, snatched off them in many cases when they need it most, the ones who have had their privacy breached, their details disclosed, and all that the government can do is stand aside and say, let the Privacy Commissioner sort it out. They know that that is wrong. They know that those people are owed an apology, but they know above all that they are owed the support that they were entitled to get as victims of sexual abuse. That's another culture change that they can make when they get a new minister, a real minister of ACC, who cares about ACC and the people who depend upon it and will do something about it. And they can also make sure that when people need their hernia operations, and when older workers turn up with their back injuries and their other orthopaedic concerns, they're not going to be told that it's the ageing process, that they are genuine injuries, that they are entitled to the support of ACC, that they're not going to be kicked around like a football and kicked off a lift to suit a minister's fantasyland targets, that they are actually going to get the treatment that they deserve. This is the ACC that has been the backbone of a good, safe, healthy New Zealand for the last 38 years, and we want it back. We want it back, and I am saying to that government, to those ministers, whatever portfolio, on behalf of the thousands of New Zealanders who are writing to me and contacting me and saying they have been done over by ACC, they cannot get treated with dignity and respect by ACC. I am saying to you on behalf of them, now's your chance to make a change. Now's your chance to do something decent for good, hard-working New Zealanders who look to nothing else but the support and assistance of ACC when they need it. Now's the time to make a change. Even Paula Bennett could do something. Ditch her other portfolio because she's making a hash of that. Young unemployment. Tens of thousands of young workers out of work because she can't get off a chuff and do anything about it. Maybe she could do something decent with ACC. Maybe she could do something decent with ACC. But don't give it. Don't give it to Nick Smith, Mr. $5 billion. Don't give it to Judith Collins, who's wrapped herself up and can't do anything anymore. Give it to someone Even Jonathan Young, he's got a smile on his face because he thinks he's in line for a promotion. Even Jonathan Young would do a better job. At least that man of the cloth has got a sense of compassion. Put him in charge because he'll do a better job than the current one and the last one, because that's what New Zealanders are looking for, and that's what they need, and that's what they're entitled to have. ACC is too important. ACC is too important to let this lot muck around with it and stuff it up. They've gone far enough. They've gone far enough. Their board has told them that, their senior management has told them that, and now is the time for a change. Start afresh with a new minister and a new culture, a new instruction, and give us back the good old ACC that cared about people, that looked after people, that gave them the care they needed it when they needed it. That's what we're looking for. And now we've come to the end of the road now, Minister. The Minister knows we're at the end of the road. She's prevaricated, obstructed, and avoided as long as she can. She can't avoid it anymore. Her board has deserted her. The senior management is deserting her. It's time that she went. The Prime Minister took action, put somebody else in charge, and give us a decent ACC, and give those thousands of people who have been writing to us in their droves in the last 3 months, give them a chance. Give them hope. Give them a chance to get the care and support they need that ACC is set up for. We don't need surpluses of $3.5 billion. We need a robust, sensible organisation that can do the job, focused on people and look after people. Above all, if we're giving people hope, if we're giving those people hope and the treatment and the care that they need, it will only happen when we have a decent minister, a minister who understands accident compensation, understands the original social contract, understands no fault,
Order.
Understands that people need help when they're most in distress.
Honourable Judith Collins.